What if the biggest band in the world could make you vanish from history with a single phone call? Everyone knows the Eagles' soaring hits, but almost no one knows why the man who sang their most iconic high note was practically erased from their history. For decades, a wall of silence protected rock's biggest legends. But what really happened to Randy Meisner in that Knoxville locker room changed everything. On June 28, 1977, backstage at the Knoxville Civic Coliseum, the air was thick with sweat, cheap beer, and an unspoken, suffocating rage. The Eagles were at the absolute peak of their global power, riding the massive wave of the Hotel California album. But inside their dressing room, a violent storm was brewing. Randy Meisner, the band's quiet, introverted bassist, sat on a bench, physically exhausted and trembling, knowing that in just a few minutes he would be expected to step into the spotlight and hit a note that felt like a death sentence. Meisner was never meant to be a frontman. He preferred the safety of the rhythm section, blending his gorgeous, soaring falsetto into the band's signature harmonies. But when he co-wrote and sang lead on the 1975 masterpiece Take It to the Limit, his life changed forever. The song became a massive hit, and audiences demanded to hear Randy scream those glass-shattering high notes at the climax. But as the grueling Hotel California tour dragged on for 11 agonizing months, that song transformed from a blessing into a psychological prison. Glenn Frey and Don Henley, the directors of the Eagles' corporate machine, demanded perfection. They wanted Randy front and center, standing under the blinding spotlights to deliver his signature moment. But if Meisner's struggle was so visible, why did his bandmates push him to the edge of physical collapse instead of offering a hand? Ask yourself, if you were in a band with your closest friends, wouldn't you protect them when they were hurting? The truth is, the Eagles' backstage environment was not a brotherhood. It was a high-pressure corporate dictatorship where weakness was treated as treason. By the time the band arrived in Knoxville, Randy was fighting a losing battle against his own body. Suffering from a bleeding stomach ulcer, a raging case of the flu, and the devastating emotional toll of a collapsing marriage. He was losing weight, coughing up blood, and terrified that his voice would crack on stage. Yet, the touring schedule remained relentless, and Randy's pleas to take the song out of the set list were met with cold indifference. What if the narrative we'd been fed for 45 years about a simple physical fight was actually a carefully manufactured corporate cover-up? As the Knoxville concert reached its climax, the crowd roared for an encore. Backstage, Randy collapsed onto his seat, completely spent, clutching his stomach in agony. He looked at the road manager and said, "No way, I'm too sick. I'm not going back out." The room went dead silent. Glenn Frey stepped forward, his eyes burning with fury. To Frey, refusing to perform was not a health issue. It was a direct threat to the band's profitable brand. He confronted Randy, calling him a coward, a deserter, and a liability to their success. The words cut deep, and in a split second, years of suppressed resentment exploded into physical violence. Randy pushed past his absolute limit, swung a fist, and struck Glenn Frey directly in the face. Backstage personnel scrambled to separate the two men as they traded blows and screamed curses. It was an ugly scene that shattered whatever remaining illusion of unity the band had left. Though they finished the tour, the internal damage was completely irreversible. For the next 2 weeks on the road, Randy was subjected to a brutal psychological freeze-out. Nobody spoke to him. Nobody sat next to him on the private jet. He was completely isolated, an outcast in the very band he had helped build. He later recalled that those final days on the road were the absolute worst of his life, a daily exercise in mental torture where his presence was tolerated only for the sake of the nightly ticket sales. Imagine sitting on a private jet next to people who pretend you don't exist, all while planning to completely strip you of your musical legacy. How long could you survive that psychological torture? Tell me in the comments, would you have walked away right then, or would you have stayed for the millions of dollars? Randy chose sanity. He officially resigned from the Eagles in September 1977, walking away from millions in future earnings to escape the toxic atmosphere. But his departure was only the beginning of a calculated campaign to rewrite history. The Eagles' corporate machine, spearheaded by manager Irving Azoff, immediately went to work to control the narrative. They needed to ensure Randy's exit didn't damage the band's pristine, laid-back image, and more importantly, they wanted to make sure he could never challenge their authority. To replace him, they brought in Timothy B. Schmidt, who had also replaced Randy and Poco. With Randy gone, the rewriting of the Eagles' legacy began in earnest. In official biographies, Randy's departure was framed not as the tragic breakdown of an exhausted artist, but as the petulant exit of an uncooperative diva who couldn't handle the pressure. This narrative was cemented decades later in the 2013 documentary, History of the Eagles. In that film, Don Henley and Glenn Frey painted Randy as a heavy drinker who stayed up all night cavorting in hotel rooms, neglecting his vocal duties and complaining about his throat. They made his refusal to sing in Knoxville seem like a sudden, unprofessional betrayal, rather than the desperate cry for help of a critically ill man. But the corporate machinery didn't just want Randy out of the band. They needed to destroy his credibility, so fans would never question why the heart and soul of their vocal harmonies was suddenly gone. When you look closely at the documented evidence, the official story begins to crumble. Contemporary concert reviews and tour schedules from June 1977 prove that Randy did indeed perform Take It to the Limit at almost every single show leading up to Knoxville, despite his deteriorating health. The idea that he was simply lazy or afraid of the high notes was a convenient lie designed to shield Frey and Henley from criticism. By portraying Randy as unstable and difficult, they justified his exclusion from future band activities, reunions, and crucially, a fair share of the astronomical profits that the Eagles continued to generate. The financial consequences of walking away were staggering. While the Eagles went on to make hundreds of millions through massive stadium tours, Randy was left to rebuild his career from scratch. He released solo albums and toured with side projects, but he was always overshadowed by the massive presence of his former band. He later admitted that he could have tripled his money if he had stayed, but he stood by his decision, stating that when it got to the point of sanity or money, he had to choose sanity. Yet, the stress of his post-Eagles life took a heavy toll. If Randy Meisner was truly the villain they claimed, why did the Eagles go to such extreme lengths to prevent him from ever speaking to the press without their legal approval? For decades, Randy was bound by strict non-disclosure agreements and the constant threat of legal retaliation from the band's powerful lawyers. He was effectively silenced, unable to tell his side of the story while his former bandmates traveled the world, playing the songs he helped write and collecting the lion's share of the royalties. When the Eagles were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1998, Randy was invited to perform with them, a brief moment of public reconciliation. But behind the scenes, the hierarchy remained unchanged. He was still the outsider who had dared to stand up to the machine. On July 26, 2023, Randy Meisner passed away at 77. The official statement released by the Eagles was brief, cold, and professional, acknowledging his contribution, but offering little in the way of genuine warmth. It was a final, quiet postscript to a life defined by one of the most soaring, beautiful voices in rock history, a voice systematically silenced by the very people who benefited most from its beauty. Whose side would you have been on in that Knoxville locker room? Would you have defended Randy's right to protect his health, or would you have demanded he take it to the limit one more time for the sake of the show? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to uncover more of the hidden, forbidden history behind rock's biggest legends and the secrets they tried to bury, make sure to subscribe and click the video on your screen right now. We have plenty more untold stories waiting for you.